March 20th meeting of the Senate Finance Committee will come to order. I want to first note that the Republicans have a new researcher for the Finance Committee, Christina Wilson. Welcome to the committee. And we have one bill on the agenda today. It's Senate File 1346, Senator Boldon, the Brady, Aune, and Joseph Anderson Safety Act. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am very grateful to be before you this morning with this bill. This bill came to me through an email from two families who were looking to make a change because they had lost their sons, Brady, Aune, and Joseph Anderson. And I want to say just a few words about the circumstances of their deaths and why this bill is so important. Brady Aune began to work for Dive Guys, doing aquatic lakeweed removal. It was meant to be a sort of a fun summer job. He drowned at the age of 20 in the first week of his work with that company. Joseph Anderson was 18 when he began working for Your Lake Aquatic Plant Management, just not even a year ago, last May. On the third day of his job, he drowned doing that lakeweed removal. Because currently, we as a state do not have clarity in our laws around the training that is required for this work. And so these families, again, navigating through their grief, came to say something needs to be done about this because we don't want any other family to go through what we are going through. And to their credit, they have persisted, and we have been working on what that change might be. And I want to thank my collaborator in the other body, Rep. Baker, as well as the Department of Labor, Department of Natural Resources, and other scuba experts that have lent their expertise to build this bill. And so this bill would create new worker safety requirements. It will require those who are doing this work and using scuba gear to be trained to get certification in scuba, which did not happen in either of these cases because it is not required. So it will add some increased safety recommendations. It will add necessary equipment that if these boys had that equipment, they would likely be alive today. It adds worker safety requirements to DNR's permitting process. The DNR is going to provide information to companies doing this work, so they are very clear on what these requirements are, what is required of them if they are doing this work. And it will ensure that if companies have one or more willful violations, which is a very high bar, that they will not be allowed to have a permit to continue to do this work. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer questions. The fiscal note you will see for this bill has very minimal costs, and the DNR has agreed to absorb those costs. And again, I want to thank the cooperation of the agencies as we have navigated this bill with very common sense provisions to be sure that something like this does not happen in our state again.
Thank you, Senator Boldon. Before we take any questions, Mr. Naumann, you want to go through the fiscal note real briefly?
Mr. Chair and members, I'd be happy to. Good morning, Senator Boldon. As Senator Boldon referenced, the first page of the fiscal note indicates that there are no numbers carried. If you move to the second page of the note, you'll discover that there are relatively modest expenses from the Workers' Compensation Fund at the Department of Labor and Industry and some general fund expenses at the Department of Natural Resources, all of which have been indicated that they can be absorbed. The general fund costs are about $2,000 in fiscal 26 for some programming of the Minnesota permitting and reporting system, in addition to some staffing costs associated with the changes to the permitting. Then at the Department of Labor and Industry, the costs, there's a nice chart on page 9 of the fiscal note which indicates all the various expenditures associated with equipment and renting of equipment, some training, all of which are directly related to the bill. So mostly the open water diving rescue certification and a whole series of classroom training just to make the individuals at Dolly up to speed per the bill. So, Mr. Chair, that it has a slight increase for dive equipment in fiscal 26 of about $5,000, and then it nestles back down to about $2,000 a year on that particular item. So there's one-time nature to that, and members can see that on the chart. So all in all, there's no scorable cost beyond the cost that the agency have absorbed.
Are there questions from the committee? Senator Boldon, I have one, and I didn't think about this when I heard the Bill and Labor Committee. On page 4 of the bill, you have, this applies to persons conducting scuba diving at a place of employment when making improvements to land, including the removal of aquatic plants. I wonder, are there any other areas in the state where people are doing scuba diving at their place of employment other than making improvements to land? Because these standards seem very appropriate, and I just wondered, are there other situations 2 years from now we come back and, oops, somebody had a tragedy at some other scuba diving place of employment? Did anybody discuss that, or have you talked with others about that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. I will say, this bill obviously is specific to this work and this situation. Through this process, have had a bit of conversation with DLI about that, and they are actually here and maybe could speak to this better than I could. There are some other occupations that do use scuba gear. My understanding is that there are better regulations currently for those professions, but would defer to DLI if they have further information.
Maybe they can come up, and while they're coming up, Senator Dames, you had a question or comment?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Boldon, thank you for bringing the bill. Can you tell me, I know that you're working with Representative Baker on this bill, can you tell me, has this been heard in the House yet? And is this the same version as what the House passed?
Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. Yes, this bill is moving in the House. They have been through both the Labor Committee and the Environment Committee. They will be heard in rule soon and intend to move to the floor. It is not exactly the same language as this bill, as we have picked up some amendments over here that they have not picked over there just by virtue of the process. But Rep. Baker and I are in frequent conversation and committed to ironing out the difference, which I believe is very possible. We have the same intent for this bill, and I don't anticipate issues with getting to the same place.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Boldon. So you're working to try to get a bill that's agreed upon so that they pass it off the floor, send it to us, we pass it off the floor, it would not have to go to conference committee. Is that where you're at?
Senator Boldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. Yes, the goal is to not have to go to conference committee, and certainly we will if we need to. But the goal will be to move this honestly as quickly as we can, because timing is of the essence with this. Spring is coming, ice is melting. This work is going to continue. Both of the companies who these young boys worked for are still in business. We want to be sure that we have regulations in place for this season, this spring, so this does not happen again.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to the committee. Please identify yourself, and if you could comment on the other types of employment where scuba diving is conducted and whether.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Josiah Moore. I'm the Legislative Director at the Department of Labor and Industry. As we've gone through this process, we have discussed some other industries where scuba work is performed in the state. The primary examples we've heard are underwater pile driving, underwater carpentry, and sort of public safety rescue positions that would do scuba diving.
And are those covered in a way that they have this kind of regulation there? I mean, I'm kind of stunned when I know when my son went through scuba stuff, I just think of all the training they had. And are those folks, because of other employment law or others, covered by requirements similar to this?
Thank you, Chair. So those folks would be covered by existing federal regulations. So there are existing federal regulations that OSHA looks for when they go to sites that involve scuba diving. So those would apply. These regulations in this bill would only apply if the work being done constituted making improvements to land. So there would have to be a determination made there, probably more likely for the underwater pile driver and carpenter piece to maybe fit into the making improvements to land than the public safety piece I mentioned. So that would be what we would have to look at in determining whether these requirements apply.
Thank you. I hope as the bill moves forward, you do look to make sure they're covered. I mean, we don't need to redundantly regulate that if it is covered, but just make sure we don't have some other kind of thing. And I'm not sure what underwater carpentry is, but it sounds interesting. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just while Mr. Moore was up here, I had a quick question. I know a number of cities will hire commercial divers to do salvage work. You mentioned this is specifically around land improvement. So are there separate regulations that cover those divers, or would they be included in this bill as well?
Thank you, Senator Pratt, for the question. I think that I can't say for sure whether salvage divers would be included in this bill. I would point to the determination under this language being determining if it falls under that when making improvements to land. So it might have to be done on a case-by-case basis in something like salvage with how this is written. Was there another part of the question?
Mr. Chair, just if they were covered by some other, as Chair Marty was kind of alluding to, would these be covered under some other statute or some other regulation like construction?
Go ahead.
Gotcha. Thank you for the question. Yeah, so there are federal regulations federal OSHA regulations that Minnesota adopts by reference. We have to adopt all of the federal regs. And there are existing diving regulations that would regulate an industry like that. There are existing diving regulations that would sort of regulate all diving operations. Nothing, I think part of what's come up in this process is nothing in the existing federal regulations includes requiring a scuba diver certification to do the work, which is sort of the main crux of this bill. But there are existing federal regs that do have safety standards for scuba work and for commercial diving operations.
I will encourage you and the House author to look about this, see if there are things in there. It sounds like it may be covered, but we just as soon not have another tragedy of this sort. Senator Dames, did you want to move the bill?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Is there a further, Senator Pratt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank Senator Boldon and her co-authors, for moving this bill. We've seen the story as it was reported on the news, and I've had a chance to go back and see some of the testimony in the other committees, and it's a heartbreaking story. And I just want to say, Mr. Chair, that this is the way legislation should be working. It should be bipartisan. We should have the cooperation of the agencies, and I'm pleased to see that the agencies are stepping up and doing what they should be doing. And so I think it's a good bill, and I would encourage members to support it.
Thank you. And yes, this is a model of how things can go, and sometimes can even go quickly when there's an urgency. Senator Dames moves that Senate File 1346 be recommended to pass. On that motion, if no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. With that, we've finished the agenda for today, and as far as we know, there is no Finance Committee expected next week either. With that, this meeting is adjourned.